When it comes to long-distance trekking in the Himalaya, the most famous trek of them all might either be the Everest Base Camp trek up to the foot of the highest mountain on Earth and down the same way, or the Annapurna Circuit, circumnavigating a whole chunk of the Himalaya, passing through almost every kind of landscape and terrain imaginable. Since about 50 years, it's now known as one of the best hikes on the planet. However, in the last few years, its popularity among hikers took a blow when many of the iconic trails were replaced by now very busy roads. Some new hiking trails were opened to avoid the road, but during the last few years even those were largely replaced by a number of minor roads as well. And while many passionate trekkers wonder if the Great Annapurna Circuit is still worth hiking, just one mountain range further east, a new tea house circuit trek came to life, circumnavigating the Manaslu Himal. This one also offers a great range of different landscapes and terrain, breathtaking mountain views, and altitudes over 5,000 meters. The area is a lot more remote than the Annapurna Himal got meanwhile, and is still almost unspoiled. The trail is comparably difficult, and while the Manaslu Circuit's name at the moment is still missing the magical ring to it that the Annapurna Circuit has, the accessibility and quality of the lodges are constantly improving. So right now, in the year of 2020, which of these two is the better trek? And much more importantly, which of the two is the better choice for you to do? Let me start by giving you some general information about both treks before diving into how we experienced both of these trails in fall 2019 and how much we like the different aspects of them, starting with the new kid on the block. The Manaslu Circuit from Sotikula to Darapani takes between 11 and 14 days. Please note that the standard schedules mentioned in various guidebooks are rather quick. The stages from Machakula to Chagat, from Chagat to Diang, and from Diang to Namrong, as described by many agencies and books, are all pretty long and on consecutive days. The main factor, besides your walking speed, is the number of acclimatization days you're planning. Since there is an altitude difference of almost 700 meters between the overnight stops in Samdo and Dharamasala, we recommend at least 2 acclimatization days in Sama or Samdo. You can also extend the Manaslu Circuit by a week by adding the hike up and down neighboring Tsum Valley. So it's either 2 weeks of walking or 3. Timing-wise, hiking the Annapurna Circuit you can be a lot more flexible as a result of the dirt road that lets you shortcut several days of walking both before and after the pass. The whole Annapurna Circuit from Besi Sahar to Nayaful will take about 20 days. The absolute bare minimum would be driving all the way to Manang, which takes up to 2 days, staying there for at least 2 full days to acclimatize, hike to Muktinat within 3 days, and take a jeep down to Pokhara, which also takes 1 full day. Between these extremes, basically anything you want is possible. Just make sure you have enough time to adapt to the altitude. Going to the proper starting point in Besi Sahar is very straightforward and will take you a bit more than half a day's ride from Kathmandu or Pokhara. If you want to go further, you'll probably have to transfer there, and also might have to wait for the next morning. After crossing the pass, there is transportation from Muktinat to Pokhara. The ride takes 10 hours plus in a jeep and a lot longer in a bus, but it's doable in one very long strenuous day. You can also just go to Tatopani on your first day of riding south and relax in the hot spring pools there. From Tatopani to Pokhara it should be about 6 hours. From Nayaful about 2. From Pokhara it's 1 day to get to Kathmandu by bus or half an hour on a plane. As of now, the Manaslu Circuit starts in Sotikula, despite the road is now motorable to as far as Tatopani whenever it's not blocked by landslides. Manaslu's Tatopani that is, not the Tatopani on the Annapurna Circuit. Tourists are not permitted to use transport beyond Sotikhola though, which makes Soti the furthest you can go. It's about 7 hours away from Kathmandu by jeep, much more by bus. Once you reach the Marsyangni Valley at Tarapani, you can do like we did and trek the Annapurna Circuit, or you go south. In this direction, you can reach both Kathmandu or Pokhara in one long day on the road. Hardly anyone is aware of the amount of permits you need to trek the Manaslu Circuit. And actually, you really don't need to, because these permits are usually always taken care of by the trekking agency organizing your tour. Once you check the agency's invoice, however, you will be aware of the costs of these permits. While a standard TIMS card is pretty cheap, with just $10, you need the Annapurna Conservation Area permit and the Manaslu Conservation Area permit for $30 each, and also the rather expensive so-called Special Manaslu Trekking permit, which price varies by the amount of days you spend in the MCA. In high season, it's currently $100 for the first week and $15 for each day more. Including taxes for a normal Manaslu Circuit trek, you might spend up to $200 per person for permits. Additionally, you will have to plan paying your guide and the trekking agency. Both together might set you back about $30 per day, depending on the agency you use, the guide's skills and experience, and the length of your trek. The Annapurna Circuit, however, is very straightforward in this regard. You need to get the TIMS trekking permit and the Annapurna Conservation Area project, or short ACAP ticket. Together, these will set you back about $50. All paperwork can be done in both Kathmandu or Pokhara. You might even be able to do it on the way, but I don't have first-hand information on this at the moment, so better don't rely on that without doing further research. You are free to trek the Annapurna Circuit unguided. Navigation is very easy all the time, and therefore also no reason on its own to hire a guide. Just make sure you don't walk alone in snow or in big altitudes like across Torongla, or on less frequented trails like to Ice Lake or Tilicho Lake. In case you choose to hire a guide, expect the same costs as you would for other treks like the Manaslu Circuit. Altitude is an important topic on the Manaslu Circuit. The two last overnight stops before you'll cross the pass are Samdo at under 3,900 meters and Dharamasala at almost 4,500 meters. This difference of more than 600 meters by far exceeds the recommended maximum daily ascent of roughly 400 meters. To prepare your body for this increase in sleeping altitude, you need to have at the very least one, but better 2 or more acclimatization days in Sama or Samdo. The pass itself sits at a bit over 5,100 meters, which makes it a lot higher than, for example, Laude Binala in Gosain-Kund, but lower than the popular passes in the Khumbu, and also about 250 meters lower than Torongla on the Annapurna Circuit. Therefore, what applies in terms of acclimatization applies even more on the Annapurna Circuit. First of all, don't ever think of sleeping at high camp if you're not completely sure that you are already perfectly acclimatized. You should do at least one acclimatization hike from Manang, for example to Milarepa's cave, or even better up to Ice Lake. If you have the time, trekking up to Tilicho Lake, which takes 2 to 3 days, is a great way to prepare your body for Torongla. We trekked directly from Manang to Torongpedi in one day, but that was only possible because we were acclimatized already from crossing Lakela on the Manaslu Circuit. Don't ever skip the night at Yakaka or Letta in between if your body is still adapting. The Manaslu Circuit is a bit more demanding than the Annapurna Circuit, mainly because there is a larger amount of ups and downs during the first week. Often you have to go back to the river, cross it and climb back up again, which makes you climb every meter of altitude multiple times. Also, the villages with the best and most modern lodges tend to be pretty far apart from each other, which creates a couple of pretty long hiking days, in case you want to stick to these more popular overnight stops, rather than just sleeping wherever you end up. Which is very much possible though. Almost every little village has guest houses or at least something like a homestay. The not quite ideal for acclimatization approach to Larke Pass I already mentioned also adds a little to the difficulty of the trek. On the Annapurna Circuit, you can be very flexible with your time plan and stage setup. As long as you have time, you can make your daily stages almost as short as you want. Also, the trails, respectively in this case the roads, are easier to walk than the winding trails on the lower part of the Burikandaki Valley of the Manaslu Circuit. On the other hand, the pass is a bit higher here, which leaves the Annapurna Circuit to be only a little bit easier than the Manaslu Circuit. Apart from this, in case you do the full circuit, the optional day trip up to Ice Lake and the hike back up from Tatopani to Korepani and Poonhill just before the end of the trek might be harder than you might think at this point. Let's move on to the topic of safety. First of all, trekking the Manaslu Circuit is not particularly dangerous. Since you are with a guide, navigation is not an issue. However, you will cross a pass at over 5,000 meters, and that always means it can be snowing at any time of the year. So use the internet connection you might find in Samagon to make sure the weather is stable. Also take care after crossing the pass. The descent to Bimtang is extremely steep and might be icy. Bringing microspikes or basic crampons can be a good idea. Additionally, you need to be aware of what altitude sickness is, how to deal with it, and how to avoid it in the first place. Bring medicine for common illnesses and if possible a broad spectrum antibiotic. All this isn't much more dangerous than most of the larger treks in Nepal, for example the Annapurna Circuit. However, the main difference is that there is no road connecting most of the Manaslu Circuit with the rest of the country. If you get sick, you might be up to a week of walking away from the nearest road. Make sure your insurance includes helicopter rescues. On the Annapurna Circuit, the furthest you'll be away from a road at any given time would be at Tilicho Lake in case you decide to go there, and in Torongpedi, with only 1 day's walk distance to rescue on wheels. The kinds of dangers you might face on the Annapurna Circuit are exactly the same as the ones on the Manaslu Circuit, but the consequences might be a little less severe since rescue would be probably much easier to organize. So we established that the Manaslu Circuit is a bit harder to access than the Annapurna Circuit. On the other hand, it's exactly that rewards you by taking you to places very few other Nepal visitors ever go to. It's a lot more remote than the Annapurna region and the Khumbu, and even more remote than the Langtang area. This will most likely change in the next few years though. So if you want your Manaslu Circuit to be as pristine as possible, get there as quickly as you can. The Annapurna Circuit, however, is not remote in any way. It's one of the top tourist destinations of the country, and it's no longer just a target for the average active hiking or trekking traveler, it's the epicenter of mass tourism in the Himalayas. While in the Khumbu you still have to walk to Everest Base Camp, here you can take transportation up to Manang, which now boasts huge resort-like hotels stuffed with tourists mostly from all over Asia, with no intention to hike or trek whatsoever. The whole tourist industry in the valley completely shifted its focus to sightseeing and shopping, and you should definitely be aware that you, if you go there for trekking, will be in a minority that most other peoples there would consider just plain weird. And they actually might even have a point. The road you will end up walking on most of the time is either dusty or muddy, and it's always loud and stinky, and walking on it just really isn't fun in any way. Let's talk about accommodation. The quality of lodges varies quite a bit along the Manaslu Circuit. While most smaller villages offer rather basic lodges without many amenities, you can also find large modern guest houses with hot showers, electricity, and sometimes even Wi-Fi. In Dharamsala, the last overnight stop before you get to the pass, there are now 2 new lodges built by attaching some metal containers to each other. All rooms are almost completely filled up by huge beds for 4 people or more each. This way, however, the rooms stay surprisingly warm, and our night there was a lot more comfortable than expected. Once the containers are full, the lodges in Dharamsala offer tents for you to spend that short night in. In general, the prices charged are similar to the prices in other trekking areas, but still tend to be a little bit more expensive than in areas where independent trekking is a thing or where there is a road available to bring supplies on. Plan to spend about $30 per person per day for food and lodging, and some more for snacks, soft drinks and beer. What might be important to people who usually trek independently and might sometimes negotiate a little with lodge owners to save on room rate or get goodies like hot showers, Wi-Fi or electricity cheaper or for free, You might not want to do this here because most lodges let your guide stay and eat for free, which is already reflected in their low salary, and whatever you might save by negotiating would probably in return be paid or rather not freely consumed by your guide. Further west things look differently. Prices are lower and the lodges even more comfortable. Hot showers, western toilets, Wi-Fi, soft beds and extensive menus are the standard almost everywhere on the Annapurna Circuit. And there is not a lot more to tell you about it. Estimate $25 for food and lodging and some more money for snacks, beer and soft drinks. One thing Manaslu has to offer what Annapurna has lost a lot of over the years is authentic culture and just life in general. While on Nepal's most popular treks, including the Annapurna Circuit, most people now work in tourism, here you find lots of genuine villages with people actually living in those mountains, rather than just serving pizza to trekkers in these mountains. Sama is a great example of a quiet Tibetan village perched high in the Himalaya. There are a couple of nice kompas and monasteries, with the most notable one probably being Ribang Monastery in Lo. If you are after culture, or a good impression of how life between the world's highest peak is like, the Annapurna Circuit might actually not be the right trek for you. There are enough related things like prayer flags, kompas, mani walls to take some nice pictures for your Instagram, but if we're talking about really experiencing at least some of the culture the Himalaya has to offer, only very little of this can be found here. The most important cultural site would be the Temple of Muktinath, sacred to both Buddhists and Hindus, and hosting an eternal flame and a line of 108 sacred waterspouts. The prettiest village on the trail in the Manang Valley might be Braga, and on the Kali Gandaki side it's probably Kakbeni near Muktinath, which not every trekker is actually visiting though. Marfa is a very pretty town too, and that's pretty much all worth mentioning from my perspective. Finally, let's talk about what might be the most important point, the landscape. After all, most likely the Himalaya is the main reason for you to go to Nepal and maybe to watch this video. The Manaslu Circuit gets you extremely close to one of those famous 8,000er mountains, especially on the hike to Manaslu Base Camp, much closer even than Kalapatar viewpoint is to Everest. The only popular place similarly close to an 8,000er and equally easy to get to would be Annapurna Base Camp or maybe Chukungri next to Mount Lhotse. Furthermore, you can see a bunch of close to 8,000ers with Himal Chuli and Gadi Chuli. There is more to the Manaslu Circuit than the high mountains though. The subtropical jungle in the lower Buri Gandaki Gorge is amazing, as well as the forest landscape on the way down from Bimtang towards Tarapani. The landscape along the Annapurna Circuit is equally amazing. The differences are really just in the details. For example, you won't actually see Annapurna 1 until almost the end of the whole trek, halfway down the Kali Gandaki Valley. But you get breathtaking views of Annapurna 2, towering almost 5,000 meters above Pisang. Also, you can see Manaslu from afar on the way up to the Manang Valley and mighty Dhaulagiri on your way down. A feature the Manaslu Circuit doesn't have is a desert like the one you will cross in the lower Mustang region on the way to the town of Kakbeni on the Annapurna Circuit. So, back to the original question. Which one is the better trek for you? If you are unsure if trekking is the right thing for you and you therefore want to go with a short and safe trek, neither one is right for you. I read in multiple places that the Annapurna Circuit would be good for less confident beginners, and I actually can't quite agree to this. While it would be the better option out of just these two, it is still a serious high altitude trek, and if you are searching for a comparably easy and safe option, you might actually want to look into, for example, the trail network south of Annapurna or in the Langtang area. There are several trek reports about short treks in and around Langtang on our channel. Make sure you check them out if that sounds interesting to you. But let's get back to our two circuits. If you are on a budget, then it's the Annapurna Circuit. It's significantly cheaper than the Manaslu Circuit, and there is not too much more to explain about this. Also, if the Annapurna Circuit is on your bucket list since ages, do it. It's fabulous. And also, if you just recently got doubts about doing it for one reason or the other, go for it. It's still a great trek and the landscape is as spectacular as ever. However, if you already did treks, like in the Khumbu region, in Langtang, or if you already did Manaslu, there is the real danger that the Annapurna Circuit in its current state might slightly disappoint you due to the long sections of walking on the road, the resort tourists that you just don't expect to meet on your high altitude trekking trip, and due to the lack of genuine village life, which has pretty much vanished when everyone began working in tourism. If you don't mind missing out on the world famous Annapurna Circuit and its alluring name, and you can afford doing the Manaslu Circuit, and you simply want the, in my humble opinion, better and more authentic Himalayan trekking experience, I'd definitely recommend going for the Manaslu Circuit. Especially if you are not sure about ever coming back to do another trek, out of these two, Manaslu should definitely be your choice. Aspects like safety, accessibility, costs, lodging are all arguably a bit better on the Annapurna Circuit. But in my very personal opinion, even all summed up, they don't make up for how much better the actual trekking experience is on the Manaslu Circuit. The trails you walk, the people you meet, and eventually the adventure you have will probably be more satisfying on the Manaslu Circuit. But this is not about my opinion, but about what's more suitable for you guys. So what's your opinion about these two treks? Did you do one of them, or maybe both? What did you like about either one? Or what didn't you like? Which one would you recommend and based on what factors? Let us know in the comment section below. And in case you would like to receive some more input about traveling, and especially trekking in Nepal, make sure to subscribe to our channel and activate the notifications so you can get a message whenever we have new content for you. See you then!